Perfect economic storm is not of our making, and we will have to brace for it. But as usual, it will be the most vulnerable, the many who are left out in the rain. Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens' rainy day fund was only ever meant for the few with the big golf umbrellas. Many of us in opposition argued at the time that the £1.5 billion and subsequent annual amounts would be better spent on much needed infrastructure. We asked for housing, for schools and for actions to address poverty. This year we have seen that underinvestment in housing exacerbated the spread of COVID because so many lived in cramped and overcrowded accommodation. We hear about schools thinking about taking more time off over the winter because they don't have proper ventilation systems to keep teachers and students warm and safe. Fianna Fáil were claiming that they had the rainy day fund idea back in 2015. In that debate, the now Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, Michael McGrath, said to you, "I am sure the Minister will take the advice of the NTMA, which will have delegated authority in this matter, that at least some of the funds could be put on longer-term notice so there may be some return available for the fund to be delivered." I'm sure Minister McGrath is now glad that you did not take his advice, and we wouldn't have access even to these needed funds if you had. For decades, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael majority governments have misspent public money. There is plenty of money in the country, but your priorities are all wrong. Recently, in our lacklustre efforts to address climate change, we agreed to pay €50 million to Estonia and Denmark to make up for us missing our target, the statistical transfer of 3,500 gigawatt hours of renewable electricity had to be paid for. What other fines will we have to pay the EU for missing our agreed targets? I've said this in other speeches just during this Dáil, but the COVID-19 pandemic has already highlighted the inequalities in our society. The normal social protection payments of €203 per week for disability allowance, for example, were deemed far too low for those who were temporarily laid off. They were to get €350 per week. I'm not saying that the pandemic unemployment payments should have been lower. I'm saying that our base protection payments should be higher. Our student nurses and our midwives could be paid as well. This week saw the publication of survey results from the Fundamental Rights Agency on the lives and conditions of travellers and Roma in the EU and 6 EU member states: Ireland, France, the UK, Sweden and the Netherlands and Belgium. The survey found that 31% of Irish traveller households are living in acute poverty. And across those 6 EU countries, the rates of poverty in Ireland were the highest. Surely that's an embarrassment for us all. Back in September of this year, the Society of St Vincent de Paul online conference tackling child poverty before and after COVID-19 highlighted the level of food poverty and hunger in single-parent households, calling it tragic. At the conference, the CEO of one family, Ms Kieran stated that they had never dealt with the amount of food and hunger issues. Ms Kieran said, "Everywhere people with children were talking about families being hungry. They have had bigger food bills because the children were at home. Pre-COVID, many schools had breakfast clubs and school meals, but these safety nets fell away when school children were staying at home as well." Minister, on that point, the Citizens' Assembly on Gender Equality is still working away, meeting online and continuing their important work. On Saturday last, the 5th of December, the Assembly met on the topic to identify and dismantle economic and salary norms that result in gender inequalities, and reassess the economic value placed on work traditionally held by women, and to scrutinise the structural pay inequalities that result in women being disproportionately represented in low-pay sectors. The Assembly is doing important work in exposing the gendered aspects of our policy decisions. Presentations showed that because our tax and social welfare systems are based on the male breadwinner model, they are more likely to leave women in poverty when they reach the pension age. Dr Dáil of the Economic and Social Research Institute presented research showing that men had an average weekly pension income of €433, compared to just €280 for women. At the beginning of October, the ESRI quarterly report highlighted the disparities between the domestic economy and exports, showing that exports had held up quite well during COVID. The author Conor O'Toole said that in 2021 we are facing the perfect economic storm of a no-deal Brexit coupled with ongoing COVID-19 restrictions. While a rebound could be expected next year, even with public health restrictions, any recovery will be stopped in its tracks by a no-deal Brexit.